I will recognize the gentleman from Vermont.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will report the amendment.
An amendment offered by Mr. Sanders of Vermont at the end of the bill, insert after the last section, preceding the short title, the following new section: Limitation on use of Exchange Stabilization Fund for foreign loans and credits. Section: None of the funds made available in this act may be used to make any loan or credit in excess of $1 billion to a foreign entity or government of a foreign country through the Exchange Stabilization Fund under Section 5302 of Title 31 United States Code, except as otherwise provided by law enacted by the Congress.
Gentleman from Texas. Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend.
Without objection.
I rise in support of this amendment, and I thank the gentleman from Vermont for bringing this amendment to the floor. I would like to clarify one thing about the original intent of the Exchange Stabilization Fund. The Exchange Stabilization Fund was never meant to be used to support foreign currencies. It should not be so casually accepted that that is a proper function of the Exchange Stabilization Fund. The Exchange Stabilization Fund was set up, I think in error, but it was set up for the purpose of stabilizing the dollar in the Depression. How did that come about? Well, it started with an executive order. It started with an executive order to take forcefully in the gold from the people. And then our president then revalued gold from $20 an ounce to $35 an ounce, and there was a profit, and they took this profit and they used some of those profits to start the Exchange Stabilization Fund. They set it up with $200 million. Doesn't seem like a whole lot of money today. How did it come about over these many years that this fund has been allowed to exist without supervision of this Congress, and now has reached to the size of $34 billion, and we give it no oversight? It's supposed to send reports to us, very superficial reports to the Congress. We don't know how they got $34 billion. Well, they earned some interest on some of these loans, and all the loans are paid back because the countries who get these loans borrow more money. The Mexico bailout really didn't solve the Mexico problem. It's ongoing. The peso's in trouble again. They're in more debt than they were before. So we only encourage the financial bubble around the world. This is a very, very dangerous notion that we can take something that was set up to stabilize the dollar, and now we are pretending we can stabilize all the currencies in the world and use it as foreign aid to boot without congressional approval. There's something seriously flawed with this. It has also been suggested by many who know a lot more about the details of the Exchange Stabilization Fund than I do, and it's been suggested that possibly, quite possibly, what happens is Treasury deals in currencies all the time, and there are profits to be made. And when there's a profit, it goes to the Exchange Stabilization Fund. When there's a loss, it's sent over to the Treasury, and they record the loss. This is a magnificent thing. But in a free society, in a democracy, in a republic where we're supposed to have the rule of law, we're not supposed to have a slush fund that is run by our Treasury without supervision to be doing things that was never intended. This is a serious problem. And I think economically it's serious because it's contributing to the bubble. It's contributing to a financial bubble. So yes, we tied Mexico over for a year or two. But what are you going to say next year when there's another peso crisis? Are we going to close our eyes and say, well, do whatever we want, it's a major crisis? Our obligation here in the Congress is to have a sound dollar, not to dilute the value of the dollar without our permission, and for our President and for our Treasury Department and the IMF and the World Bank and the internationalists to destroy the value of the dollar. That's not permissible under the rule of law, and yet we have casually permitted this to happen, and we don't even ask the serious questions. We should make it certain that all loans, all use of that, is reviewed by the Congress. This is a very, very modest request by the gentleman from Vermont. It should be absolutely approved. But then someday we ought to give a serious study about how we as a Congress allows these kind of things to happen without our supervision. What is the purpose of having a Congress? What is the purpose of the Constitution if we have an obligation to guarantee the value of the dollar? If we permit somebody not under our control to do whatever they want to the dollar under the pretense that you're going to protect the value of all the currencies of Asia? Are we going to protect the euro now? The euro's getting pretty weak. I guess we're going to bail out the euro. What if that drops down under a dollar? We'll expect the Exchange Stabilization Fund to come and rush to bail out the euro. This has to be looked at. This is the first very modest, very minimal step that we're making tonight. It should be overwhelmingly supported. It is up to us to assume our responsibility to protect the dollar, have the rule of law, make sure that we assume the responsibilities that have been delegated to us and not close our eyes and let this slush fund of $34 billion that has existed for now these many decades and have allowed the Treasury Department to run it without us caring. So I plead with you
Time of the gentleman
to
has
support the
expired.
amendment.
Gentleman from New York.